Morning, everybody. Well, thank you all for showing up for Coffee with Kevin this morning. I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all have to say today. So Jenny's going to be our moderator. And so I think everybody knows how we did this last time. So if y'all want to get your questions into Jenny, then we will have her moderate the questions and see what you all want to talk about tonight.
All right, Kevin. First question, what are campus operations going to look like after Thanksgiving?
So after Thanksgiving, we're going to have operations, two things. First, we're still going to have our finals week after Thanksgiving. So we'll be doing finals. Most finals will be distance-based, online or distance-based. There are some that aren't, but all those are specific to a course or a program that everyone is aware of. But so we'll be going to the online final exams. And then after Thanksgiving, we are going to be in operations that feel like it was during the summer, where we're encouraging faculty and staff to telework as much as possible after Thanksgiving. We do anticipate that there will be case rates in our communities that will continue to increase. We're increasing now in our community, in all of our communities. Plus, with holidays and holiday travel, things like that, we anticipate it will continue to increase. So we're going to try to continue to control and reduce the spread of the virus as much as possible. But our students do need access to our campus. They need access to the Wi-Fi. They need access to computer labs, other essential services, financial aid, things like that. And so they're going to need that through the end of after our time between Thanksgiving and when we break for the winter holiday. So campus will remain open. We need offices open, but operating on limited staff, skeleton crews. All supervisors are encouraged to work with their VPs to determine what services we need to have and adjust staffing levels as much as possible to deal with trying to control the spread of the pandemic. But that's our plan for after Thanksgiving.
Okay, next question, Kevin. What is your favorite Thanksgiving side?
Thanksgiving side?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. The only reason I'm pausing is because I have to pick between two. Wow. So if I have to pick my favorite definitely is these rolls that I make. So they're a half whole wheat roll that I make. It's not really quite half. It's like about 1/3 whole wheat, and then the other 2/3 is regular flour. And I make those first thing in the morning on Thanksgiving Day, and then let them rise throughout the day, and then roll them out. And then after I roll them out and cut them, then I take the circle that I've cut out, and then I fold them in half and press down so they fold on top of one another. And then after you bake them, when they come right out of the oven, then I take a stick of butter and I rub butter right on top of the rolls, right while they're still hot right out of the oven. It gets the butter. And then because of that fold, from the round in the fold, that's the perfect place to then pry it open to put whether you want butter or jam on the inside of the roll. So yeah, that's probably my favorite. Now, the other one I had to pick between is mashed potatoes and gravy are always really good. So it was a tough call, but I would definitely go with the rolls.
Okay, and follow-up question. Are you able to share this recipe?
Yeah, I am. Whether I will is a different question. No, yeah, I would. I'd be happy to share that recipe because it's a good one. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Kevin. And you said jam or butter. Please note that you can put both on a roll.
Well, I prefer I'm more just plain butter traditionalist, but Some people like jam, but oh, and by the way, for everybody, I do have my hot chocolate. The weather has turned cold enough now that I have my hot chocolate.
All right. Student attendance question. Is there anything that you can share about how student attendance is tracking? Is there a sense that students feel engaged and involved?
All I've heard is anecdotal. And so I don't know that, I know that we've talked about that. I've heard that some students are struggling with what the environment is like now. And I've heard from some faculty who feel their students are remaining very engaged, and I've heard from others that it's been difficult. So I think as long as we're in this new normal for the moment, we have to encourage all faculty and staff to do whatever we can to reach out to students, to keep them engaged, ensure that someone is checking up on them, make sure the students know that we care about them. And I think that's critical right now for everyone. I think we have had probably some of our classes where attendance numbers have dropped off, but I honestly don't have the data to give a direct answer on that. So I'll give a story instead. So this weekend, I went out for Rake a Difference, raking up leaves for some houses in town. And I did it with a group of 3 different groups of students. There were a group of our physician's assistant students, a group of our honors program students, and then some of our students who attend the LDS seminary. And sort of 3 groups of students, but we were all working together on these houses. And so I talked to all of them. And what was really heartwarming to hear was their stories and their experiences. And in this group in particular, they were very engaged. They were very happy. Even the ones who were, a couple were new freshmen in the honors program. And I said, how's your year going? And they said, well, it's been difficult, and this isn't what we, really wanted about going off to college. They said, but even with all that, we've really had a good experience. It's gone very well. And then they said, we're really thankful for the way Idaho State has handled this, because we know it's bad out there, but we appreciate all the efforts. And then they talked about many of their friends who are at other institutions. And they said, from what we've heard from others, we're doing a great job at Idaho State. We know what's going on. They talked about how much they appreciated all the messages and communication they've been getting. So it was really heartwarming to hear that some of our students appreciate that these are difficult times, but are happy with all the efforts that we have taken, and they know it's not what we would all wish it was. So it was good to talk to some of our students who understand that and understand that this is temporary and that we'll get through it. So anyway, I probably over answered that question, but so.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. Next question. Hold on one second. How does spring semester look like for Idaho State University, and are we having in-person classes?
Yeah, so spring semester is going to look like what we've been doing this term. We're not going to change course. Based on the information we have now, pandemic is still here. There are still outbreaks, in fact, bad outbreaks in some of our communities right now. So we will continue to have the spring semester look like it does currently here in the fall. We will have some face-to-face courses, we'll have online courses, we'll have hybrid and high flex courses continued to offer as we have now. All the courses that we will have that'll be face-to-face will have the distancing requirements in the larger rooms, except if there are health exceptions put in place when necessary. We will continue face coverings as mandatory on all of our locations. When I visited with Dr. Burks a couple of weeks ago now, she and her health team of experts were very explicit about face coverings. They find face coverings to be the most effective way to deal with stopping the spread of the virus. And so face coverings will be mandatory. So, and every week we will continue to review all of the data. We'll continue to review what's going on in our communities, and make sure that we adjust our environment based on what the outbreak or the spread might look like. And we'll be ready to make changes if we have to. So.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Next question. Can you please talk to us about furloughs for the spring?
Yes. So earlier this year, I guess it was in about May, we announced that we had to implement a mandatory furlough plan for this current fiscal year. So as part of this plan, when we designed it so it would impact all employees above a certain salary threshold. And we purposefully said that you had to take half of your furlough days in the fall and the other half during the spring semester. The reason we did it that way was so that we had flexibility in the event that we had to do change our furlough plan for the spring. We had a good idea how fall was looking, and then we don't know how spring was coming. So we decided if everybody had to take half their days in the fall, then if we had to make changes going into the spring, we could do that, and it would be fair to everyone because half the days for everyone would have already been taken with half left. But we've looked at this, and we've looked at the status of the current university budget. We've looked at our enrollment projections, and as of right now, we are going to continue with the spring furlough plan as originally planned without any changes. So right now, yes, there will be furloughs in the spring, and it will be as announced earlier this year without any changes. So our Office of Human Resources will be distributing the individual furlough notifications to all impacted employees over the next several weeks. That will be similar, consistent to the original plans we outlined earlier in the year. So that's our furlough plan for the spring.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Next question, is there an estimated date for announcing the interim provost? Can you talk a little bit about when that search will begin?
Well, I don't have an estimated date, but it will be fairly soon. Laura is going to be here with us through mid-January. So we have some time to make sure we get a thoughtful decision on that. And then we will be putting together a search committee, and it will be broad-based with lots of input. And we'll start the search process in January as well. I plan to announce an interim provost before January, but I don't really have a timeline. Probably a good bet is in the next couple of weeks is when we'll make an announcement on an interim. And then we will put together a search committee and start a search process in January. When we put the ad out for a provost, it will, my thought right now is that it will say that we expect the successful candidate to start in January of 21, but it could also be January 22. Apologize, I'm off a year there. So we're going to start the search in January 21. So start date would be January 22 or June of 22. It's going to depend on, get the right candidate and what their schedule is and what their commitments are, but starting somewhere in the between January and June of 22.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question, can you please give us a current budget update?
Well, currently we are tracking to have about $2.9 million off of our FY21 budget due to revenue losses from enrollment, revenue losses from our auxiliary operations like housing, athletics, dining, those areas. Our units across campus, in every part of the campus, from academic to administrative and otherwise, everybody's doing a great job managing their expenditures and their budgets. Things are going well. It's just that we are bringing in less revenue than we had budgeted by about 2.9 million is what we estimate our fiscal year end deficit will be. So now several things can impact that between now and next June 30, the end of our fiscal year. We don't know what our spring enrollments will be yet. We don't know the full extent of what activities we will or won't be able to do. For example, everybody knows we've announced plans that we will be having athletics competitions in the spring. And we don't know exactly how those will pan out from a revenue or expenditure basis yet. We do have the possibility of additional COVID relief funds, both from the state and potentially from the federal government, but the state still has some COVID relief money that we have made some applications for. So, but that's where we sit. As of right now, our best projections look like about a $2.9 million deficit. And the good news is, with the measures that we have put in place with regard to the hiring freeze, with regard to the furloughs, are able to help us get to that point. And we do have reserves to be able to manage that $2.9 million deficit from our reserves, which means if things stay on track with that level of a deficit, we do not anticipate any further furloughs or anything along that line right now.
Thanks, Kevin. We have a message of thanks for putting the furlough days by pay scale. This person wanted to pass on a thank you for doing that by pay scale.
Okay, good, thank you.
We also have some suggestions for cooking with Kevin. Could be our next coffee with Kevin. So start prepping for that.
Okay, so should we do some sort of bread making? Something like that. When do we do our next coffee with Kevin? Do we have one scheduled?
I don't think it's scheduled yet, but around the same time next month.
Okay, I'm just wondering whether we should do, like as we get up into the holidays, if we should do a like a cinnamon roll demonstration or a cinnamon pull apart bread for, like a holiday morning breakfast.
And we do have a specific request for Zoom roll making. So maybe we do your rolls. I don't know. We have options. We'll get back to everybody. There's a yes to the cinnamon roll and the bread. So maybe both. All right, next question. I watched the athletic town hall and was wondering if students will be allowed in Reed Gym during basketball season. And this question came to us from YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a really difficult question. I know how much it means to students and means to the student experience. I mean, the whole reason universities have athletic programs is to open up a window to the university, to be an ambassador of the university, to let these student athletes do what they do so well and let our student body rally around the school spirit. But I think that's unlikely. We have a tentative plan that we will vet with our local public health district because we're only going to do what gets signed off by the public health district. Let's be clear about that. As much as we all want athletics to go forward, we're going to do it safely. Under the current governor's order and under our public health district guidelines, we are looking at having a maximum of 50 spectators. And even though Reed Gym holds 3,000 people, and we could potentially socially distance out a lot more than that, we are going to stick to the public health guidelines. We're going to do it right. So at the end of the day, that's not going to leave an ability to have students attending the games right now. We're going to keep the community safe. Things may change. We may be able to open up more space as the season goes on if things go well. But again, everybody has to wear their masks. Everybody has to participate in our programs and our guidelines to help keep our campus rates down in order for things to get better. One of the things that's going on at athletics, everybody probably knows this, but the NCAA is requiring pretty intense and significant testing protocols for student athletes, for coaches, for athletic trainers, for everybody involved in an athletics program has to undergo constant testing, no less than 3 days a week. They have to be tested. And so just to keep our operations going in athletics, we have to do that level of testing and screening. So all of the participants, all of the people who are on the court taking statistics and all those other things will have to be part of that. But when it comes to the spectators, we just have to limit the size. So sorry, again, to over answer that question, but the answer is no. Unfortunately, we won't be having students in basketball, at least not at the beginning of the season.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Next question. Can you please give an overview of what virtual commencement will look like and what you might need from our faculty and staff for this?
Okay. This was a really difficult decision. It was a very difficult decision for me to make to not have commencement. I really love commencement. And our commencement is spectacular. Last December, when we had commencement, and it was moving for me. So not having one this time was a really difficult decision. But again, we were trying, the safety of our campus and our campus community is the utmost importance. That has to be number one. So we're moving to the virtual ceremony. Now, I think our virtual ceremony is going to be great because I have so much faith in the people who are working on it. We've communicated this decision to all of our graduates, and that the ceremony will be held virtually on December 12th. So all graduates are going to receive a celebration box in the mail prior to that date. The box will have their diploma. It's going to have confetti. It's going to have a car decal. It's going to have notes of congratulations. It's going to be a really nice package that they will get. I really hope and I really think that our graduates will use this, the contents during the virtual ceremony to celebrate their major accomplishment for them, because this is an important part of their life. And all of our graduates are going to be invited to a future in-person ceremony if they choose, to make sure that they will get a chance to walk across the stage when they can do that. I know that our teams are working with all the college level marketing directors to create video messages from faculty and staff to share with graduates. And I encourage every faculty member to reach out to their college marketing director so that they can be included in those outreach efforts. If you have graduates that you work with, you mentor, you teach them, you advise them, let them know how incredibly proud you are of their accomplishments in getting that degree. And I think if we undertake all of those efforts and those personal efforts, and we show our graduates that we are making sure that this is a special celebration for them, I think it's going to be pretty good.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Next question. Have you personally had to enforce ISU's face covering policy on campus? What was that like for you? Can we get a pep talk? I'm exhausted from being the mask police. I know others must be sharing this feeling. Mostly easy with people having a normal reaction to the request, but every 10th person or so, it's not so easy. The health ambassador training doesn't adequately address that feeling of dying a little inside when someone refuses to comply.
Yeah, I'm sorry that's happening. So I've done shifts as mask ambassador, public health ambassador, as we are calling them officially. I have had to have the hard conversations with people on our campus. So I do understand how difficult that is, that level of what feels like confrontation when it shouldn't be confrontational is out there. But whoever asked the question and to everyone else who has done a shift as a public health ambassador, thank you. I appreciate that you've done it. I appreciate you're willing to do this. Ultimately, it's an important part of what we're doing to keep our community safe. So thank you for doing that. I am urging everyone to wear the mask. Wear them correctly, not down under their nose and not down under their chin. Wearing them correctly is a key. And doing that, we can curb the spread. Again, I mentioned earlier that I met with Dr. Burks. She's for the State Department, she's the World Public Health Ambassador for the United States. And she's a part of the federal government's response to COVID. And I was so heartened by visiting with her because she is a true public health professional who is approaching this work of combating the virus with science and with medicine as a background. And it was a very good visit. And she emphasized over and over what they have found is the mask wearing, public or face coverings are the most effective in combating the spread of the virus. And she put it this way. I thought it was a fantastic story. She said she was talking to some people who were in North Dakota and it was very cold. And she said, you know, when you go outside in the winter and you can see your breath, all of those little things you can see are liquid molecules that are freezing in the air. And all of that breath that you can see in the winter is where the virus spread comes from. She said, go outside and breathe out like that when it's cold and watch your breath, and then put a mask on and do it again and watch the difference. See how you can physically see that those water molecules don't spread. And so mask wearing is really important. So to everyone who is taking a shift as a public health ambassador and having those difficult conversations, and I know they're difficult, thank you for doing that, because that is right now our number one way of keeping control of the spread. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question. All online students are listed as Pocatello students, regardless of where they live or which campus they use as home base. This poses all kinds of problems, from what support each campus gets for the students to what support the students get. In addition, all books for online classes are only available at the Pocatello bookstore. Thus, if a student on one of the satellite campuses needs a book, they have to drive to the Pocatello bookstore or pay to have the books delivered to them, regardless of whether or not there's a bookstore on their satellite campus. Is there any plans to differentiate which campus online students associate with to help curtail all these problems?
Yes. The answer is yes. And we have to have a work plan to get to that. So I've asked that question many times. One of the problems of what I was told when I first found out that this is a problem is that the way our students are classified in our banner system, and that we need to work on that. So it's a basic programming problem in banner. So we have to figure that out. We have to both figure out how we classify students, and we have to deal with the delivery of their course materials. So whoever brought this up, thank you. It is a legitimate problem, and we need to work on it. So yes, we are.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, now this next is not a question, but a comment. So I'm going to read it verbatim. I just want to say thank you for all you have done at Idaho State. The culture has really improved here over the past few years, and your leadership has trickled down to many within the organization. Let me give you one example of how the culture of trust, compassion, stability, and hope has improved things. I have served on several search committees at the program, department, and college levels over the past few years, and I have noticed that we are able to be more persuasive with applicants and recruit better people overall because we can speak with more confidence about the trajectory of the institution. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm just genuinely glad that our campus culture is moving in that direction. It's the right direction. So those 4 basic values, trust, compassion, stability, and hope, are real keys to our future. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. I'm wondering if we might implement a work from home initiative after Thanksgiving for all who are able to work from home.
Okay. Yes. So let me just reiterate. We talked about this at the beginning, but I'll reiterate. Campus will remain open after Thanksgiving. However, the majority of our courses and our exams are going to be online until the end of the semester. So we are encouraging faculty and staff to telework as much as possible after Thanksgiving, as we anticipate the case rates will continue to not be good for us. But our students still need access to campus. They need access to the Wi-Fi, to computer labs, to essential services like financial aid, registrar's office, etc. So much like we did during the summer, campus will remain open, but offices should operate on as limited staffing as they can, skeleton crew staffing. Supervisors should work with their VPs to determine the service needs and adjust staffing levels, because we should be encouraging and allowing as much telework and work from home as we can, while making sure that we remain open for our students. So that's our plan post Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question. The admin assistant for the ROTC program has an office in the basement of Garrison Hall. The temp is regularly in the 90s in the summer and in the 80s in the winter. Despite contacting facilities several times, she has found no relief. What can be done to help?
Yeah. Sorry about that. That's not a good environment. Our campus has areas of where our infrastructure is old and difficult to manage. But this is the first I've heard of this particular problem. I'll chat with our finance and administration area and in facilities, and we'll see what we can do. So thanks for asking.
Thanks, Kevin. Next question. Can faculty and staff travel right now? What exactly is essential travel?
Well, right now we are in our operational level, yellow, but with some of the orange sections implemented. So it's kind of a hybrid. All non-essential travel is prohibited. And while we're in these COVID outbreak times, unless travel is truly essential, we don't want our people traveling. Essential travel, to be essential, has to have a vice president's approval. So the VPs are making the determination on a case-by-case basis, looking at what is essential, truly essential. Can this work be done virtually or over Zoom? And what protocols we can have in place if necessary. So it's a VP level decision, because we want that reviewed. We want those questions actively asked. Now, it's different when it comes to instructional travel between university campuses, right? If we need travel between, for example, Pocatello and Idaho Falls, or between here and Meridian or Twin, and it is instructionally related, and it's to get that classroom instruction out there, then we are allowing that. And but absent VP approval, so when it comes down to essential, we expect the vice presidents to be asking the right questions and determining whether or not it's truly essential.
Okay, next question, Kevin. Where did our fall enrollment end up? Are there things that we can do to help with enrollment for the spring semester?
Okay, so here's where we ended up for the fall term. Our census date numbers, which is mid-October, we do census date. We ended up at 11,786. So we have a decline in our undergraduate students, and that decline was about 7.5%. We had an increase in our graduate students of about 7%, just under, like 6.9%. Overall, when you do our total head count, we are down 630-ish students, so about 5% down overall. Most of our decline was in dual enrollment students, the high school students. And we think it's because their schedules at the high schools around the entire state were unsettled with the pandemic, and some schools started late, some started only online. When you take dual enrollment students out of our overall enrollment, our decline was 2.1%. Now, we don't want that decline, and that's difficult for us in many ways, but it is much better than many other institutions have seen, both regionally and nationally. So it's not all bad news. We've fared much better than others. The increases we have in our graduate program are really positive. Our transfer student numbers are up. Our transfer students in state is up almost 3%. And our transfer of out-of-state students was up really significantly. It's not a high number to start with, but overall, out-of-state transfers were up over 40%. And when we've talked to some of the students, they've told us why. That they knew we would be open. We're in our outbreaks here are still less than other parts of the country. They were safety here. They liked the way we were addressing the pandemic, and they transferred here, which was great. So we're currently in registration for spring. So we'll see what our enrollments are like for the spring. We know that a lot of people, faculty and staff, have done a lot of work to support our students. And the last part of the question is, what can we do to help with spring semester? Well, first, everyone on our campus, faculty and staff alike, we all have responsibility for enrollment. We all can do our part. Whatever we can do to reach out to students, and making sure students don't fall through the cracks, that they know we care about them, that what we do is student-centric. Work directly with students, reach out to them, make sure you help them get registered. If they're having problems in their classes, make sure we do the outreach so that they don't feel like, well, I may as well just quit. That's what we don't want. So making sure our students stay connected to our campus is key. Student surveys talk about that when students feel connected to their university, they feel connected to faculty and staff alike. It makes a big difference. I read a story one time, and it was, it's been a number of years now, but it was someone who had went on to be very successful in life, and they said they were going to quit college at one point, but they ended up striking up a friendship with one of the landscapers on campus. And every day when they'd walk to class, they would visit with that landscaper and just chat about things. And that was the connection that person established. So everyone on our campus can have an impact on a student's how they feel about being connected to the campus and what's important to them. It's that human connection. So ensuring that we do that outreach and that we are making sure that students feel like we want them to be here, that's what everybody's job is.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question, is there a specific protocol we need to follow for in-person events for the spring? Are in-person events even allowed, or is it on a case-by-case basis?
Well, first of all, they need to be mission critical, not just something we even want to do or that would be good to do, but they have to be mission critical. And they have to also be genuinely mission critical. Hosting events or having events for third-party operations just aren't mission critical right now. So they need to be mission critical. And then the other limit, the guideline we have put in place, and we're going to stick to it, is that there's a 10-person limit. So that's what we're doing right now. Health exception forms are required if anybody wants to do something And especially if you wanted to have more than 10 people, you'd have to have a health exception. We'd have to look at that. There's a process by which you can do that. We have an online form. The health committee reviews these requests. But right now, large gatherings are not what we need to be doing.
Next question. Why did the university change spring break? Not having the same spring break as District 25 is hard. That's it.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so we changed spring break to later in the semester, all as part of our virus response. How we did it is we moved spring break to the end of the term. So there will be a week of spring break and then followed by a week of online or distance-based final exams. So spring break is important not just as a break or a vacation, but because it also gives students time to work on things. They have an extra week at one point in their semester where they have time to work. It's also important for faculty to have that time to do their work, for grading and everything else that they have to do. So having a spring break is important academically. But what we wanted to avoid was students leaving in mid-semester, even faculty and staff all leaving and then returning and increasing the spread of the virus. So that's why we made the decision. So to eliminate the need for people to leave and then come back to campus. However, there will be some in-person or hands-on testing requirements in some classes, and those that have that already know about that, but we did this to eliminate the travel. So for next spring, we'll begin classes as scheduled on January 11th. We will not have classes on Martin Luther King Day or on President's Day. And spring commencement will be moved to April 24th, the Saturday before spring break. Now, I know that it's difficult not to have spring break the same as School District 25. But something had to give in our schedule change. Keeping in mind that we have operations in campus sites in Pocatello, Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, Meridian, and Anchorage, Alaska. And the reality is, no matter when we have spring break, it will not be congruent with local school districts at some of our sites. And so no matter what we did to move it, it wasn't going to work out at some point. I know it'd be much easier if it could be the same as School District 25 because most of our students are here. But in order to move that, I tried to explain, at the beginning of this answer, why we did it. Because stopping the spread of the outbreak, again, this is temporary as we deal with the pandemic. This is not a permanent decision to not be congruent with School District 25. But for this one semester in the spring, that's the way we had to do it.
Thanks, Kevin. This is a follow-up question to the travel question earlier, which is, are returning travelers being monitored for COVID self-isolation?
So we have a protocol in place for anyone who travels to monitor their symptoms and maintain isolation or quarantine. So if they are traveling, now if they travel and they maintain COVID restrictions while traveling, that's different than if they don't, but hopefully they do. But our health committee, again, a group of very hardworking people have dedicated a lot of this, and they are experts in this, have put together a really helpful flow chart to deal with how to isolate or quarantine. So, Jenny, thank you for sharing. This is the website to the flow chart on how to deal with isolation or quarantine after travel. So if you could follow those protocols, that would be great.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Next question. You invited us to do another employee engagement survey. Will you share those results with campus, and will improvements be made to campus based on the feedback received?
Yeah, we will. So all of our employees, full-time, part-time, temporary, student employees, everybody are invited to take the employee engagement survey. I think this is really important, engaging how we're doing in our culture. how we are making progress towards trust, compassion, stability, and hope. I want to know how people feel about Idaho State University. This is meant to identify the areas where we might have barriers to getting to the culture that we want, where we have, productivity and positivity coming together, and being the place to work that we all want it to be. And so we do want to identify those barriers, find out where they are and how we're going to address them. So this survey is pretty similar to the one we did in 2018. The results from 2018 are already posted online. The new one isn't because it isn't completed yet. So when it is completed and all the data is tabulated, yes, we will post it. We have an employee engagement task force of faculty, staff, and students put together to review the data and make recommendations on improvements. That will be anonymous, of course, where the data is or where it came from, but it will be posted when it's ready.
One question, follow up on the engagement survey question. Were any changes made based on the last survey results?
I mean, did we customize this survey based on some of the things we found in the last survey? But the survey isn't identical to the one before, and we are trying to target what some of those barriers are. So yes, we did customize it.
Apologies. Follow-up clarification. Were any changes made to policy?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, we have been trying to work around updating our policy manual. I guess the short answer is yes. We are working on policies specific to the last engagement survey.
Next question. This is from a faculty member. I'm a tenure track faculty member, and I have concerns about the impact that COVID-19 is having on my progress in both service and research as related to my tenure application. Is the university aware of this, and how are looking into it?
Yeah, good question. Yes, we are. We are aware of the issues that this is creating, and we are looking into it. In fact, Academic Affairs is working with our roaring back committees to specifically create a faculty impact subcommittee to deal with that. So the subcommittee is going to review recommendations on tenure, promotion, workload, teaching impacts, all of these things that are flowing from the COVID-19 pandemic. You've probably all seen, there's been articles in the Chronicle of Higher Education about this. So to all of our faculty out there, we know that this is out there. We are going to be looking into it. Teaching in hybrid or high flex courses is different than what we've taught in the past. We understand that will be an issue. All of these things are going to impact tenure and tenure track decisions. And so this subcommittee is going to be looking into those things.
Thanks, Kevin. We have a follow-up question about that. Can you tell us how Stop the Clock is working right now?
So, this pandemic is impacting all of us, everyone. And I understand how important that tenure clock is for our faculty. This pandemic is creating challenges that are they're just unprecedented. And for faculty pursuing tenure, I understand what those are. So in recognition of this, the university identified that this pandemic, the COVID pandemic, is an exceptional case under our existing policy 4020. So as a result, the university will offer approvals for faculty who request Stop the Clock as a tenure deferral to add a year. No additional information is going to be required of faculty who request it, other than it's being based on COVID-19 impacts. And in October, I think it was mid-October, all this information was emailed out to faculty that would be the case. So, so in terms of Stop the Clock, I think we've already made the decision on that one, or not the decision, but made that offer to our tenure track faculty.
Okay, follow-up question, same subject. Are student course evaluations going to be adapted to the review of promotion and tenure?
I'm sorry, Jenny, can you say that again?
Yes, absolutely. Are student course evaluations going to be adapted to the review of promotion and tenure, distinguishing between how a faculty member's knowledge of course information versus their skill with remote technologies, for example?
That's a really good question. I don't have the specific answer to that right now off the top of my head, but I will, I'll visit with the provost and we'll follow up on that.
Okay, next question. You spoke about how to make your Thanksgiving rolls, but what is your approach to mashed potatoes and gravy?
My approach is, I feel silly talking about this, but I actually do a mix of russets and Yukon Golds. I like the flavor and texture of the russets, but the creaminess of the Yukon Golds is a good mix. So I do a not quite 50-50. It's probably a 60-40 split, russets to Yukon Golds. And then when I mash them all together, then I put in some butter and milk and salt. And then gravy, I'm not particularly a great gravy maker, but I try. But I have recently come across a pretty good gravy recipe that works pretty well. So that's my approach, I guess.
Okay. Perfect. I think that's the last of our questions, unless one comes in just in the next few seconds. So Kevin, I will turn it back over to you for any closing thoughts.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for participating and your questions. I like doing these coffee with Kevin because it's nice to visit with everybody. Zoom is a little different than when we used to do them in person, but I appreciate it. This has been, I mean, I've used the word unprecedented so many times recently, but this has been an unprecedented semester. But the way our campus has pulled together, faculty and staff alike, to continue to carry out our mission so that students can better their lives through education, so that we can better our entire society through education. That's why we're here. That's our entire mission. And the fact that we're still doing it, and the fact that we have stepped up, and the fact that our students have noticed, the fact that they told me just this weekend in 3 different groups of students, and they all commented that they have noticed the way we're doing it and they appreciate it. And they hear from their classmates at other institutions about what's going on there, and they prefer some of the ways we've done it. That's all a tribute to all of you and all the work that you've done and the hardship that you've put up with and the difficulty in continuing us moving forward during this pandemic. I just appreciate all of you and everything that everybody does every day to keep us moving forward. So thank you for participating today, and I hope you all have a good day. Thanks, everybody.